The African savanna at midnight is a place of absolute silence, but also absolute terror. Mark Thompson, a 42-year-old veteran ranger who had protected this vast land for nearly 20 years, found himself staring death in the face. His hands were tied tightly behind his back with a thick nylon rope. His knees were forced into the red dirt. Standing in a circle around him were 5 heavily armed poachers. Their faces were hidden in the shadows, but the cold steel of their rifles gleamed under the pale moonlight. Mark had been tracking this notorious poaching syndicate for over a week. But a single misstep in the dark had led him straight into their ambush. "You've been a thorn in our side for too long, Ranger." The leader of the poachers sneered, stepping forward and cocking his rifle. The metallic click echoed sharply across the quiet plains. Mark took a deep, shaky breath. He looked up at the sea of stars pouring down over the African sky. He had dedicated his entire life to protecting the majestic creatures of this land. If this was where his story ended, he had no regrets. He slowly closed his eyes, waiting for the inevitable. But in that exact moment, a chilling, otherworldly hiss sliced through the darkness. It wasn't human. And it wasn't a lion. Before the poachers could even turn their heads, a sleek spotted shadow erupted from the tall grass like lightning. To understand what was happening, we have to rewind the clock. Time rewinds to exactly 2 years ago. 2 years earlier, it was the peak of the dry season. The golden grass of the savanna was brittle and scorched by the unforgiving midday sun. Mark was driving his battered patrol jeep along the northern boundary when he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. It was a cry of pure agony. Mark immediately stopped the engine, grabbed his medical kit, and quietly pushed his way through the thick acacia bushes. What he saw broke his heart. A female cheetah, easily one of the most beautiful creatures on the savanna, was writhing in the dirt. Her back right leg was caught in a cruel, rusted wire snare left by poachers. The wire had dug deep into her flesh, and blood soaked her golden fur. But that wasn't the worst part. About 50 meters away, a pack of spotted hyenas was slowly circling. There were at least 8 of them. They were cackling, licking their lips, waiting for the cheetah to completely exhaust herself. In the wild, a cheetah's speed is her only defense. Without it, she is completely defenseless against a pack of hungry hyenas. Mark noticed something else. The cheetah's belly was slightly swollen. She wasn't just fighting for her own life, she was heavily pregnant. Mark's principles dictated that he should never interfere with the natural order. But a poacher's trap was not nature. Mark didn't hesitate. He pulled the flare gun from his belt, aimed it toward the sky right above the hyena pack, and pulled the trigger. Bang! A blinding red light exploded in the air, accompanied by a deafening hiss. The hyenas scattered in absolute terror, their cowardly cackles fading into the distance. But Mark knew they wouldn't go far. He had to work fast. Mark slowly turned back to the cheetah. She was panting heavily, her eyes wide with fear and pain. She bared her sharp teeth and hissed as Mark approached. "Easy now, girl. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help," Mark whispered, keeping his voice incredibly low and calm. He dropped to his knees, making himself look as small as possible, and slowly slid his medical bag onto the ground. For 10 agonizing minutes, Mark didn't move an inch. He just let the cheetah look at him. Animals have an incredible instinct for sensing intentions. Gradually, the cheetah's frantic breathing slowed down. Her hissing stopped. She looked at Mark's hands, then at his eyes. And finally, she laid her head in the dirt, exhausted. She had chosen to trust him. Mark carefully crawled forward. He pulled heavy-duty wire cutters from his bag and gently grasped the rusted wire. Snap! The wire broke. The cheetah flinched but didn't attack. Mark quickly flushed the deep wound with warm water, applied a generous amount of antibiotic ointment, and wrapped it securely with a medical bandage. As he worked, he noticed a very distinct, jagged scar across her left ear. It was a unique mark, one he would never forget. When the treatment was done, Mark stepped back. He went to his jeep and brought back a piece of fresh meat he had kept for his own dinner, placing it gently near her paws. The cheetah slowly pushed herself up. She hobbled slightly, testing her bandaged leg. Then she did something Mark had never experienced in his 15 years on the savannah. She didn't run away immediately. Instead, she limped right up to Mark. She lowered her head and gently nudged her wet nose against Mark's rough, calloused hand. It was a fleeting touch, just a second, but it contained a lifetime of gratitude. She looked deep into his eyes, let out a soft purr, and then slowly vanished into the golden grasslands to protect her unborn cubs. We return to the present. The dark, cold night. Mark is on his knees, tied to a tree, waiting for the poacher's bullet. But the bullet never came. Instead, a blur of spotted gold and black struck the poacher leader with the force of a freight train. The man screamed as he was violently knocked to the ground, his rifle flying into the bushes. The other 4 poachers panicked, wildly shining their flashlights into the darkness. But a cheetah is the ghost of the savannah. Moving at unbelievable speeds, 2 more sleek shadows joined the fray. They didn't just attack wildly, they moved with terrifying, coordinated precision. One shadow leaped off a boulder, knocking the second poacher off his feet. The third shadow swiped its massive claws across the chest of another man, shredding his jacket. The poachers were screaming in absolute terror. They had no idea what was hitting them. In the pitch-black night, these predators moved faster than the human eye could track. Run! Run! The poachers screamed, scrambling to their feet. They abandoned their weapons, abandoned their gear, and ran blindly into the unforgiving savannah, terrified for their lives. Within 30 seconds, the chaotic clearing was completely silent again. Mark was breathing heavily, his heart hammering against his ribs. He struggled to look through the darkness. Slowly, gracefully, a slender silhouette stepped into the moonlight. It was a cheetah. And behind her, 2 fully grown, powerful young cheetahs stepped forward. The mother cheetah slowly approached Mark. Her amber eyes glowed in the moonlight. Mark shrank back slightly, these were still apex predators. But as she stepped closer, the moonlight caught the side of her head. Mark's breath hitched in his throat. There on her left ear was a jagged, unmistakable scar. "It's you," Mark whispered, tears suddenly blurring his vision. "You came back." And the 2 magnificent hunters standing behind her. They were the unborn cubs she had been fighting to protect that day. The mother cheetah let out a deep, rumbling purr. Her sharp teeth, designed to tear flesh, were incredibly gentle as they gnawed at the knots. It took several minutes, but finally the rope snapped. Mark's hands were free. He slumped forward, rubbing his bleeding wrists. Her 2 cubs sat patiently on either side of her, like royal guards protecting their king. Mark reached out a trembling hand. He hesitated for a second. But the mother cheetah leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his palm. The 2 cubs also approached, sniffing Mark's boots and letting out soft chirps. But she had never forgotten the scent, the voice, and the kindness of the human who gave her a second chance at life. When she smelled his distress on the night wind, she didn't run away from the danger. The 3 cheetahs walked alongside him for a few meters, escorting him toward the direction of his hidden backup vehicle. She looked back at Mark one last time. In her golden eyes there was a silent farewell. With a graceful leap, she and her cubs disappeared into the darkness, blending perfectly with the African night. If this unbelievable story touched your heart, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We will return soon with more amazing and heartwarming stories from the wild. Thank you for watching.